Well, good evening and welcome to another Wednesday night virtual service. Tonight we're going to talk about evangelism and we're going to talk about sharing your faith with others. And this is one of those topics where we all talk about it. We know it's important. We know that we're supposed to do it, but a lot of people really don't implement this in their lives. A lot of people aren't very good at sharing their faith and telling others about the gospel. We have lots of reasons for our inadequacies and for not doing that. Quite often it's because of fear. Some sort of fear that we have. It might be a fear of being rejected. It might be a fear of not knowing enough. Some sort of fear that makes us think, yes, we should be sharing our faith. We should be telling other people about Christ, but that's not me. I'm the wrong person for that job. And we often make up a lot of excuses. One of the excuses that we give is that evangelizing, well, that's a gift, and I don't have that gift. I don't think sharing our faith is a gift. Telling others the good news and letting them know about Christ and what He did for us is not a gift that we can excuse away. It's a requirement. Every single person has that requirement. It's incumbent upon you. It is expected of you. And some people will say, well, I'm not good at doing it. And so what I do, my form of evangelism is I live the Christ-like example. I live it, right? And then people can see me living like Christ. They can see Christ in me. That's my form of evangelism. To a degree, that's true. To a degree, it's true. People should see our lives and our example. They should see our good deeds. They should be able to know that we're not of this world, that we're doing things a different way, that we are a citizen of the kingdom of God. But at the same time, this is another excuse not to step outside our comfort zone. It places the burden on the other person. And we assume that they see us, they understand us, and then they place their own life in comparison with ours, and then they're going to ask the questions about the differences. And they're going to take that initiative to find out why we do what we do. And then they're going to say, well, how do I partake in that? How do I have the thing that you have? That's assuming a lot of a person who doesn't know the truth, right? We're placing a pretty big burden on them and assuming they're going to do lots of things and take lots of steps. Why do we assume that? Because it relieves our burden. We absolutely have to live out the Christ-like example, but we also have to use our words. We have to actually teach them and tell them about Christ. Romans 10:14 and 15. How then will they call on Him in whom they have not believed? How will they believe in Him whom they have not heard? And how will they hear without a preacher? How will they preach unless they are sent? Just as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news of good things. If I was trying to start some sort of a campaign, right? Let's wear a blue shirt on Mondays for some particular cause, right? And I start wearing a blue shirt every Monday, but I don't tell anybody about it. I don't tell them why I'm doing it. You think anybody else would follow? Over time, they might realize what I'm doing. Oh, it must be Monday because Michael's got his blue shirt on. Oh, I see his blue shirt. He's doing his thing again. They would be able to understand that on Mondays I'm wearing a blue shirt, but I've never asked them to join me. I didn't tell anybody why I was doing it or what was going on. Therefore, I really can't expect anyone else to join me in doing that, can I? If they do join me, if they decide, hey, Michael wears a blue shirt on Monday, I think I'll wear a blue shirt on Monday. Do they understand why they're doing it in the first place? I've never told them. I've never explained it. There was a survey done a few years back that found 3 to 5% of all Christians. 3 to 5% of all Christians, and that's all the people who call themselves Christians, regardless of their specific doctrine, regardless of what they believe. They just call themselves Christians. 3 to 5% share their faith regularly. 3 to 5%. That means 95 to 97% of us have a message of truth, have a message of hope, have a message of joy. We have the answer to salvation, to eternal life. We have a message of life everlasting, a message of the very Son of God who sacrificed himself for our sins so that we can be made new, so that we can enter into an everlasting relationship with the God of creation. And we don't like telling anybody about it. 3 to 5%. And we wonder why church attendance is declining, why churches are closing their doors, why there's so much evil and sin going on in the world. We wonder, how has this country gotten so bad? How has this decline happened? Well, did you tell anybody there's a better way? Did you let anybody know the good news? If we go over to 2 Kings chapter 6, what we've got going on here is the king of Aram has set up camp outside of Samaria. And the people of Samaria, they're in big trouble because there's a famine going on in Samaria. And that means there's no food inside. They can't go outside to get any food. And so we're going to read verses 24 through 29. It says, "Now it came about after this, that Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, gathered all his army and went up and besieged Samaria. There was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and a fourth of a cob of dove's dung for 5 shekels of silver. As the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, 'Help, my lord, O king!' He said, 'If the Lord does not help you, from where shall I help you? From the threshing floor, or from the winepress?' And the king said to her, 'What is the matter with you?' And she answered, 'This woman said to me, Give your son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow.' So we boiled my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, Give your son, that we may eat him, but she has hidden her son." This is how bad things have gotten. They are in so much trouble. They are starving to such an extent that they're now eating their own children for food. One of the tactics armies would use during this time, whenever they went against a walled city, is to simply surround the city with all your forces. You don't even have to fight, because eventually they run out of food and they either submit, come out, and you win, or they starve to death. They die. If the people inside the walls of the city don't have enough military force to come out and fight, they just stay inside and everybody waits, and it becomes a test of who can wait the longest. And at this point in the story, they are obviously out of luck. They're out of time. They have waited as long as they possibly can wait. The food is gone. There is no hope. They've gotten to the point where the only option left is cannibalism. And it's not just any cannibalism, it's their own children. And now you come over to chapter 7. And we pick up the story from the perspective of some lepers. Now, if you were a leper, at this time, you're not allowed inside the walls of the city. You're unclean. You can't be anywhere near the rest of the population because they're afraid you're going to infect them. Leprosy was infectious. And so you got to keep them outside. They got their own little community, their own little camp, but they can't be around everyone else. And so the lepers, they already live a pretty pathetic existence. They're outside the walls of the city. They usually live on the scraps that people are throwing out. They can't have a job. They can't do any of that stuff. They're completely dependent on other people for their livelihood. Their food, their clothes, everything they have is basically what people throw outside the city because it's garbage. The lepers go and they scavenge it. And that's what they live on. I would imagine this is pretty hard living, because even though they already have to deal with the problem of leprosy, their skin is decaying, their body parts are falling off, it's really bad. Now they also have the problem on relying on other people to leave enough food in the trash to keep them alive. Here they are in the middle of a famine. You think anybody's throwing food over the walls? Is there any waste coming out of this city that will allow them to live? No, not a crumb gets wasted. There's an enemy surrounding the city. Can't go off to look for food. Can't go inside for food. They're trapped. There's no hope. And so chapter 7, verses 3 through 8, it says, "Now there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, 'Why do we sit here until we die? If we say we will enter the city, then the famine is in the city and we'll die there. If we sit here, we die also. Now therefore come, and let us go over to the camp of the Arameans. If they spare us, we will live, and if they kill us, we will but die.' They arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Arameans. When they came to the outskirts of the camp of the Arameans, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had caused the army of the Arameans to hear a sound of chariots and a sound of horses, even the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, 'Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us.' Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses and their donkeys, even the camp just as it was, and fled for their life. When these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they entered one tent and ate and drank and carried from their silver and gold and clothes and went and hid them. And they returned and entered another tent and carried from there also and went and hid them." What this is saying is the lepers just hit the jackpot. They hit the jackpot. This is the big time. It's all the food they could want. Brand new clothes, gold, silver. Can you imagine being in this situation? They were hopeless. They had nothing. No hope for their life. They're left to live on scraps of food that's thrown out for the rest of their life. They're left to live in the dirt and the filth and the muck and the mire for the rest of their life. These are the people who have lost everything. And the only thing left for them is to wait to die. And now they walk into a camp and it's all theirs. It's all theirs. All that food, all the riches, everything. Tents to live in, horses to ride, weapons, everything just gets left behind. This is a rags to riches story, and it happens in an instant. And their reaction is to start burying everything. We got to hoard it. We got to hide this. Don't let anyone else get it. We got to hang on to this stuff. Make provisions for the future. Make sure they have what they need. But look what happens next. Verses 9 through 11. "Then they said to one another, 'We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, but we are keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now therefore come, let us go and tell the king's household.' So they came and called to the gatekeepers of the city, and they told them, saying, 'We came to the camp of the Arameans, and behold, there was no one there, nor the voice of man, only the horses tied and the donkeys tied, and the tents just as they were.' The gatekeepers called and told it within the king's household." The lepers knew what they had to do. There were people in that city and they were dying. They were starving to death. They had no hope. There was despair everywhere. And they had even resorted to boiling and eating their own children just to stay alive. It was bad. The lepers knew about bad. They knew that this is news that has to be shared. This is news that is going to save people. It's going to end the tragedy and turn it to joy. They had everything they could want, but it wasn't theirs to keep and to hide. And so they went and they told the good news. Now in the next several verses, we find the king, he's skeptical. He thinks it might be a trap, but if it's true, he has to find out. And so he sends out a small group to check it out, and they find out it is true. The Arameans, they're gone. And we read in verses 15 and 16, they went after them to the Jordan, and behold, all the way was full of clothes and equipment which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. Then the messengers returned and told the king. So the people went out and plundered the camp of the Arameans. Then a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. Now, what does this story have to do with evangelism, like we started this lesson with? Well, you may already see some comparisons and see where we're going with this. We're the lepers. We are the lepers. Christians have discovered not just riches, but life. We've discovered life. Had nothing been done, had the lepers stayed right where they were and did nothing, they would have died. It was assured death. But when they decided to go and check things out, and they said, well, look, we're going to die anyway. Let's at least make an effort. They found the camp. They found life. However we came to Christ doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if we were brought up in the church and baptized at a young age, or if we lived in all sorts of sinfulness, we hit rock bottom, we had nowhere else to turn, and we finally made our way to Him when everything else failed and we had no other options. Finding Christ, however we found Him, is a joyous event because death was surrounding us. But we found life. We found treasure. And the rest of the world are those people behind the walls enduring a famine. The treasure is theirs for the taking as well, except they don't know what's there. They're locked up and living in misery, and they don't even realize there is a treasure waiting for them just over the hill. And I think it's interesting that the example given for how bad things had gotten in the city is that a woman is petitioning the king because they had eaten her baby and now the other woman isn't following suit. She wants the king to demand that that other child be eaten. That's pretty bad. That's pretty depraved. And the way this story is told, it's as if she's more concerned about the other woman backing out of their deal. She's more concerned about the fact that that other woman won't let her eat her baby than she is about what just happened to her own child. What they've done is almost beside the point. It's just a part of life. It's just normal. What's really bugging her is the fact that the deal fell through and the other woman isn't doing what she already did. I already did this depraved thing. You have to do it too. And sadly, this is exactly the kind of story I would expect to hear today. People are celebrating their immorality. They are celebrating, they are promoting, they are embracing and shouting out their depravity. They're holding it up and they're telling people to be proud of it, embrace it, love it. Look at this evil, terrible, awful, horrible thing. Love it and do it like me. People are starving. People are starving, and in their starvation, they are looking for anything and everything to fill them up. No matter how bad, how awful, how depraved. And guess who has the food to feed them? We do. We've got it. We've got the food right here. We have the bread of life. In John 6:35, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst. It's right there. And 3 to 5% will actually let people know. The lepers said to one another, we are not doing right This day is a day of good news, but we are keeping silent. What Jesus did for us on the cross is no reason to stay silent. Quite the opposite. It's a reason to rejoice and to then tell every single person we met why we're rejoicing. There's no training required for that. There's no special gift needed. Each and every one of us should be telling people the good news the same as we would tell them any other good news. If we can say that we have been called by Christ, that we have turned our lives over to Him, that we are now following after Him, that means our job is to tell others. Because it's a celebration. That is worth celebrating. That is worth rejoicing. That is worth shouting from the rooftops. Our job is to carry on the work that He started by sharing the good news and telling others where they can find the bread of life. As you go through this week, consider this fact. Consider that if you're a Christian and you have the bread of life, there are people all around you starving. What are you going to do about that? Will you feed them? I hope all of you have a great week. I hope you will consider this message. Hope to see you next Sunday.